So welcome everybody. This is the first ever Zoom edition of Odyssey Storytelling, which is really strange for all of us. And we're trying to settle into this sort of untamed wilderness of how do we do a storytelling edition over Zoom. And I think that fits really well, segues really well with our theme for this month, which was savage. Because I don't know about the rest of you who have been trapped in your homes for months. I'm feeling a little bit savage right now. I kind of want to claw my way out and go do something besides just go to the grocery store with a mask. But I'm still doing that because that's what we're all supposed to be doing. But I do feel a little bit crazed. But when I think of the word savage, I think people have different reactions to this word. Like sometimes the word can come off as somewhat negative because we think of it as being maybe uncivilized or ferocious or angry or something. And certainly that word can mean that for some people. But I tend to think of that word as feeling more like wild and unhinged maybe a little bit, but in a good way, like being out of the constraints that maybe keep us behaving in a certain way that maybe we don't always want to behave, just like now being on this quarantine, right? And so for me, the word holds a special meaning because maybe my first time in my life that I felt very savage was when I went off to Tibet and lived there for 100 days at 15,000 feet in a tent. And I remember my mother reacting to the news of me going to do this as thinking it was very scary. And so sometimes, again, that word savage can carry some sort of fear along with it, right? We think of savage as maybe something we don't want to interact with, something that's very savage. But for me, it ended up being a very freeing experience. And so it was that very idea of being untamed, of being outside the normal boundaries of what our lives sort of set for us every day that made it so special and really brought to me this feeling of being able to find that inner savage, that person that had lots of strength that I didn't know existed until I was put in this situation where all of these boundaries just went away, right? The boundaries of everyday hygiene, the boundaries of living under a roof, the boundaries of time really melted away because every day was just about wake up when you wake up, go into the field, do your work, come back, eat, and go to sleep. And there was no set schedule, which was absolutely fantastic. And so I kind of want to roll into this experience where we're talking about savage, thinking about it a little bit differently than maybe we might react to that word initially. And hopefully the stories that we're going to hear tonight and some of the stories we'll share on the podcast around this topic will help us to come at that word from a different angle. So maybe we'll experience some of that this evening. And with that, I'm going to just introduce, we have two storytellers on Zoom tonight, Anna Gaskin and Sergio. Sergio, what's your last name again?
Gonzalez.
Sorry about that. See, my savage brain is a little out of control. But they're going to tell stories for us here on Zoom tonight. And then we have at least one other story that will be added into the mix as well by Martin Pepper. So I'm going to turn it over to the storytellers and let them dive right in. I don't know who wants to go first. We're not following the rules tonight, so whoever wants to jump in can just go for it.
No, we're living in savage barbarism tonight.
We are, totally.
What do you say, Serge? Paper, rock, scissors?
Let's do it. Wait, is it 1, 2, 3, shoot, right?
Yes,
does the winner go first or second?
They choose.
Oh,
First.
okay. All right.
Winner chooses.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, shoot. Oh. Okay, so do you go first, or do you want? What do you want to do?
Go ahead and take it. Ladies first.
Oh, that was so nice. That was so civilized.
So civilized. Shows that we work together all the time.
That behavior has no place here on this episode.
Yes. So, okay, first I know we don't normally preface our stories, but I have to preface the story by saying, God, I hope it does not get us kicked off of YouTube and or anything else. The content is...
I was drinking water.
I know. I'm like, it's pretty adult content, so bear with me. I find that there's kind of no easy way to get into this story. So, and I am not a person that mulls around with words anyway most of the time. Sergio will tell you I actually walked into my office the weekend after this occurred and was just like, guys, guess what? And just literally just was like, hey, I broke my boyfriend's penis. So I'll just let you digest that for a second.
Yeah, let me marinate with that one real quick.
Marinate. This happened months ago. I have to say it happened months ago before the whole COVID thing. So just keep that in mind for chunks of the story. The first thing everybody would say to me is, what the hell, right? And then secondly, I would get the how. Like, how did this happen? So that usually was kind of like the next step of, how do I explain this? Mind you, I don't think that we like do anything crazy. We're not having, savage sex or anything. Like, it's nothing crazy. I'm not jumping off of trampolines or something. Like, this is not, I don't even, I actually have to say, I didn't even know that this could happen. People immediately were like, oh, didn't you know that, this happened to like Dennis Rodman or something? And I was like, I'd never heard of this. No, I didn't know this was a thing. But even if it is a thing, I never imagined it would happen to one of my partners and with me, I suppose, which is very weird. So, gosh, what can I even share? Let's just say for argument's sake that he was behind me. And so here's the
For
thing.
argument's sake.
For arguments. Just, whatever.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. But,
Picture it, if you will.
Yes, exactly. And here's the thing, right? Like so this is a thing that we joke around a lot about is I feel like this possibly could have happened because of what I like to call sexy Charlie Brown. So remember when you watched Charlie Brown and the teachers, when they would talk or the parents would talk and you just hear like a womp, 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 womp.
Yeah.
So when I'm like really in the moment, if you will, I kind of get distracted, I zone out. I don't really know what's happening. And so I just kind of start to hear kind of a womp, 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 womp. And then I'm like, sure, whatever, everything's cool.
I'm already terrified.
It's yes. So he's behind me, it's dark. And then all of a sudden I hear this very scary, like, hey, babe. And I'm like, oh crap, what's going on? He's like, there's blood. And I'm like, what? Like immediately, right, as a woman of my age, like I was like, okay, it's probably me. I'm going to stop, I like reach for the light that's next to my bed. I turn on the light and I kid you not, there was a massive pool of blood on the bed. So now I'm like terrified. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I thought I was hemorrhaging. I'm like, I'm dying. This is it. What's happening? But we kind of stopped and stared at each other because for a moment it was kind of like, are you sure? Like it was like, is it you? Is it me? Is it you? Is it me? Like what's happening?
Rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah. Maybe it's both of us. God only knows. So I run over to the bathroom, which is right next to the bed basically. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to compose myself and try to figure out like, is it me? Right. And I'm doing the math about my period and I'm getting cleaned up and I'm thinking, no, this is impossible. It's not me. I'm coming to the conclusion very quickly that it is not me. And I glance over to him because I can actually see him from the bathroom. And he's laid back down on the bed looking real pale. And he's like, he kind of looks down at himself and then he looks up to the ceiling like, oh, crap. And I just hear him go, nope, yeah, it's definitely me. It's definitely me. And I'm like, oh my God, what do you mean it's you? So I go running back to him and I'm like, oh my God, babe, what do you need? What do you need? Like, I'm like, first, if you know me, I'm actually very good under pressure. I'm very good when like emergencies happen. I'm quick on my feet. This broke me. It broke him, but it broke me too. So I literally was just like, no, like 300 things going through my head. And I'm like, what do I bring you? I don't have any gauze. What can we do? Like, I'm like bringing him towels and things and it's not stopping is the thing. So I'm like, hun, I think it's time for us to go to the ER. I think it's not going to get any better. And, being a guy, I don't know. Like, he was just like, no, I think if I just get in the shower and just like, run some cold water on it, it might help it stop. And I'm like, hun, you didn't cut your finger making dinner.
No.
This is your penis. Like, okay. So, but I'm like, you know what? If there's one thing I've learned over the years, with, other guys that I've dated. It's that sometimes you just have to let them get to their own conclusion. So he gets up and he goes to the shower and he's standing in the shower pouring cold water over his penis. And of course the water is not helping. He's still bleeding. So finally he's like, okay, I think it's probably time to go to the ER. And I'm like, thank you, God. So he's starting to look more and more pale. And for anybody who knows my boyfriend, he's a very large, dark-skinned black man. So for him to start to look pale is an issue for me. Like, I'm really starting to worry here. And so he's like, yeah, I don't feel so good. I think we got to go. And I'm like, great. You're probably going to get lightheaded. You're going to pass out on me. And there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to drag your body out of here to go to the ER. So I'm worried sick. I'm getting him his clothes. I'm trying to get him dressed. I'm feeling pretty proud of myself now because I've got his pants on. I've got his shirt on. I've helped him while he's still applying pressure to this thing. It's crazy. We get all the way downstairs and I'm patting myself on the back for getting him ready when I realize I forgot his socks and shoes. So he's barefoot. So epic fail there. And then I'm like, well, I guess you're just going to wear slippers because we got to go. There's no more waiting. This is it. So we make our way out the door and I look at my GPS and I'm like, okay, what's the closest ER? Why did it have to be St. Joe's? So the only Catholic hospital in the area is like the closest ER to me, which, is just one of those like, sure, cool. As a quote unquote recovering Catholic, that is just irony for me. So we get in the car, we head out, we get there and get all checked in and everything. And why do we get like the most happy-go-lucky male nurse of all time? I mean, this guy was ridiculous. Like, we walk in and he's just like, hey guys, like all excited. He's like, what brings you in tonight? And it's like 1:00 in the morning. So I'm just like, what the hell? We're here for fun, guy. I don't know. What do you think? Right? So we start trying to like explain what happened and we're mortified and we're just like, what, this, and then this, we don't know how it happened. And so he's got to like drop trowel, right? So now imagine this big man and he's got his pants around his ankles and the two of us are looking at him. And he's like, yeah, it's not common. It's definitely not common. This is above my pay grade. And I was like, cool, great. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to have to get like an actual doctor to look at this. I'm not really sure what's going on here. Like he's just like totally like, what the hell? So I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. They take us out back to the waiting room again and we have to wait for an actual doctor. The doctor comes. This is like an hour or so later. We go back in again. This has been like the longest evening of our lives. I don't know if the bleeding stopped. I'm still worried about him. We get back in there and now there's 3 of us. The male nurse, this new female doctor that walked in the room, and myself. And this poor big man of a boyfriend of mine is standing there and he drops trowel again. And now there's 3 of us staring at his junk like Nancy Drew. It's great. So poor guy, right? Yeah. But here's the thing. And she kept saying, like, she was like, what exactly were you guys doing? Like, she really felt like we must have been doing something crazy. She asked me like 3 times, were you using any foreign objects? I'm like, no.
Gosh.
It was all perfectly normal. But the good news is he was perfectly fine. He healed very quickly. A few days later, everything has been great. The thing I love about this is that, so when we actually first arrived in the ER, this whole thing happened in like early January, okay? I actually had a stand-up comedy show because I do stand-up comedy now on the side. I had a stand-up comedy show like 2 weeks after this happened. And I had to scrap everything. I was just like, screw that. I'm definitely going to talk about this thing. And the reason I chose to do that is because it was his idea. Like, we got to the ER and when we got settled in and we were just sitting there, he was like, well, now you have material for your comedy show, babe. And that is why I love that guy. Thank you.
That is a good guy.
Yeah.
That is a good guy. He's a keeper. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh. So normally in a normal show as a curator, I would come back on stage and make some comments. And I don't know where to go with this one, but I do have some questions. Like, first of all, how do you break your penis and not feel an immense amount of pain? How did he not know it was him?
I'm wondering something similar. Like, I honestly don't know how you could have not known. Like, I'm just trying to imagine doing that to myself and not knowing, and I don't want to know what it feels like.
Thinking of it right now, I'm hurting. So
Yeah,
I imagine
yeah.
he actually didn't say he had really any pain. It was very surprising because it was internal. So it was like in there somewhere, something ruptured or happened, or God only knows. But
So he wasn't in pain. He was just losing blood.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's bizarre.
But they did refer to it as a penile fracture. So,
Okay. Well,
apparently that is a thing.
Guys, what's in your peniles that fractures when you do that? That's what I'd like to know.
I believe there is such thing as a penile bone, I think.
No.
there's something.
I don't think there is.
It's like
This is not to encourage self-examination after the theater. So
No. You should self-examine. Come back with the answers.
Well, you know what, Anna? If in the
doctor.
future, if you ever find yourself single again down the line and somebody needs to know something about you, you can always say, look, I am such a savage in bed that I broke my man's junk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could carry it as a badge of honor.
It
Even though you were zoned out and didn't know what was going on back there, you don't have to tell that part.
It could go on your resume, is what Jess is saying.
That's right.
That is literally when I told people this story at work, I was talking to a couple people about this because I have no boundaries whatsoever, apparently. And I was telling my boss about this, and her first reaction was, that is a resume builder.
Yeah.
It's like, that is a special skill. I was like, oh no.
For sure. Your sexual resume has
that
just
is something
gone up
to threaten people with too, if you ask me. You'd be like, if you don't quit, I've done it before. I will do it again. So
you don't even know.
Well, thank you for sharing that story with us, because I think it brought some much needed laughter and just took us out of our, crazy quarantine whatever right now and got us to a place that probably none of us expected to go tonight. So thank you.
Never expect to go again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hope never to go to this particular place ever again, personally.
That's right. So, Sergio, how are you going to follow that story? I can't even imagine, but I'm really excited to hear what you have to tell us.
I am not at this point, to be honest. There's no way that's following that. But what the heck? Here it goes. And to your point, Jess, we living like savages. This beard is just going to keep getting longer. But this is not the story of not showering for weeks on end or, not proper beard care. It does involve college though, which that stuff happens in college, not like, right now. It take you back to, I think it was a couple years into college. I went to Arizona State University. Don't boo me. I'm sorry for those of you in Tucson. Go Devils. But
those people who work for the University of Arizona who may or not be right here.
Oh yeah. Well, at least we haven't furloughed our people.
Oh,
so
big man.
Had to. I only jab back. This actually goes in line with the story, jabbing back. We were, as you know, ASU has the stigma party school. Everybody knows it. They hear ASU, they're like, oh, party school. Oh. Well, sure enough, I'm a college kid. Now, for people who know me, I am not a quick to anger person. Not at all. Like big nerd, as you can tell, big teddy bear. I bottle a lot of stuff in, but I always have outlets for things. When I was in high school, it was football. I was a defensive captain on my football team. I did, it was in Texas too. So, I had to play on a torn MCL because there's no such thing as an off week, in Texas high school football. But, it was college time. I didn't play football. Instead, I did mixed martial arts, like the UFC fighters. So I did that for a couple of years. Learned some cool things, met some cool people. One of the people I met became really good friends with by breaking his nose, and he cracked my orbital bone. That's how we became buddies.
Nice.
And after that happened, we had a beer together. It was good. But his last name's also Gonzalez. So they called him Gonzo. They called me Gonzo. So we were always referenced as Los Gonzos. A couple Mexicans walking around, of course, you have to throw the Los in front of it. Why not? So sure enough, it's a group of friends, Los Gonzos included. We get invited to a friend's birthday party. She's a good friend of ours. We hang around with her every other weekend. Very nice. And, we get there. It's a formal event, and I'm a big guy. I don't wear like a tux. As formal as I get was in a vest and a button up with some jeans. No, it's not getting better than that. So I'm still kind of comfortable. I can move around, we're good. But it was invitation only. After a couple hours, people start to show up. Just as college parties happen, word gets out. People are like, oh, hey, let's go crash this one. And then started at about 50 people. And then started to grow a little bit, and a little bit. So sure enough, birthday girl comes up, and she's like, hey, Gonzalez, I hate to ask you, but can you guys go man the front? Like, can you guys go man the front door? Make sure, like, nobody comes in who's not supposed to. And I'm like, all right, I guess, what do you expect? You got a big Mexican. Of course, you're going to ask him to bounce the party. I get it. I'm scary. I get it. If people only knew. But, so they're like, hey, take whatever you want. Go for it. So we're out there, shooting the shit. People coming up. Hey, can we get in? I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Hey, can we get in? Here's our invitation. Sure, go on in. And people get desperate when they really want, to party. Offered money and favors, a number of things. But, just will needed to be strong. And, it was like, sorry, birthday girl said no, and turning people away. Well, after being outside, we've been out there maybe about an hour or so. Party's going, music's loud. Can't really hear anything aside from the music, and we're just sitting out there. Somebody runs out, grabs one of us, says, hey, one of y'all need to come inside. Something happened. Shit. We look at each other, we're like, what? Now what? Oh. So I was like, you want me to do it? All right. So I go in. Like, what's going on? I look to the corner, our birthday girl, sitting there, holding her eye. Just sitting in the corner, her little sash on, her crown, holding her eye. And we're like, what happened? They said, I won't mention his name, he hit her. Okay, wait, what? They're like, yeah, the dude just came up and thought it was funny and thought it was a great joke and just hit her. I'm like, no. And I'm sure you're all having the same reaction. Like, why would someone do that? Like, no. Apparently, they go back. They're good friends. I'm sorry, but no. That's where I'm from. That's still not acceptable anyway. So I was like, okay, look. Take care of her. Where is he? Oh, he ran that way. I think he went to the bathroom. Okay. He went to the bathroom. Got it. So I go look for him. Sure enough, he's in the bathroom. Been in there for about 20, 25 minutes. And, I know liquor doesn't go through you that quickly. So when I get there, though, there's about 5 guys waiting. It looked like something out of a video game. You're about to walk into, just like, they were ready to go. And I'm like, this is going to be fun. Well, he opens the door, takes a step out, and immediately you just start hearing it. Skin to skin, people just smacking him. And he's trying. This guy, 6'2", pretty lanky guy. He's trying to fight back. To be fair, I gave him every chance to fight back. I was like, go for it, man. This is your battle. I mean, you brought this upon yourself. But they were just going. 5 dudes, 1 guy. I'm like, okay, enough is enough. This isn't fair. I try to step in. I'm taking a little bit of hits. And he gets hit, falls on my chest. I'm like, you know what? That's it. I slip in, grab, squeeze, and pull. And I let go. And the way it was described was he folded like a noodle. Because as soon as I let go, it was an out. Like, out. So he falls on the floor. They're kicking him. They're still kicking him. Jesus. And I have to like hover over him. And I'm just like, look, I did this to him. I will do it to you too. I never thought that would come in handy when, you know, being a dad later, be like, I'll get you too. But no, it's like, you know, it was in there. So they stopped. They realized it. Told one of them to help me get him outside. Me and Gonzo are looking at him, kind of slap him around, wake him up. Bleeding. His nose is probably broken. Got, you know, blood coming down, a couple bruises and stuff, eyes getting shut. He tries to come at me. He's like, what the hell, man? And I'm like, wait, whoa. I saved you. If I wouldn't have intervened, you would probably have a lot more broken bones than you do right now. So, yeah. He's like, okay, thanks, man. Let's go and have a shot. I'm like, no, dude. No. I'm like, you need to leave. He's like, but I'm sorry. Like, she's a good friend of mine, man. And I was just kidding around. I was like, I don't give a shit. I was like, you gotta go. Oh, and he's like, oh, okay. Walking, wiping blood, takes off. I thought that was it. I'm like, you know what? That's fine. I did my part. I went back inside to see what happened, how it was going. You know, I'm not one to boost my ego and like to talk about myself in that way and make myself feel good. But I now know what it feels like when you walk into an arena and people are screaming your name. Because as soon as I walk back in, all you hear, like there's people like cheering me on. I'm like, who walked in behind me? Like, who am I missing here? And no, they're yelling like, Gonzo. I'm like, this for me. I'm like, I'm just saving this dude. So, you know, the rest of the night, I'm sitting down, people pouring drinks. Hey, here, have this, have that. Oh, man, that was bad. Oh, you see it, the way he just folded. Oh, that was great. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I'm glad you guys had a lot of fun out of it. But the only reason why it sticks with me, and only time I ever really hear savage in that context, or in a context like this, was because I did have a friend look at me and he goes, dude, I don't care, but that was one savage thing that you did. And I'm like, all right, I'll take it. So, moral of the story, don't hit women or people will put you to sleep.
Fair enough.
That's great. It's always interesting to me to hear stories about people who get into that mixed martial arts, because I've always wondered what it is about humans that we do tend to be attracted to things that sort of bring us to our baser sort of savage selves. I mean, people have always been a fan of watching things like boxing and fighting. And, you know, you think back to the days of the gladiators when people would go into these giant coliseums to watch people battle each other to the death. And it's always made me wonder, what is it that we have inside of us that attracts us to these types of things? Because it's kind of scary when you think about it, like being entertained by hurting each other. And yet there's something within us that comes out in these. It's like with sports, you were talking about football. I mean, I even see it with my young son on his soccer team, you know, when they get out there and they're playing soccer and they get competitive and they're 12 years old. And I wonder, what are we tapping into right now in these children that makes them so competitive at this age when we haven't taught them really how to be competitive? So, you know, it may be one of those things that humans just can't escape completely, that self we have inside of us that has this desire to, in certain instances, come out of our shell and be untamed in that way.
I think too with things like, I grew up in a house that was very much like, we watched boxing regularly, we watched like you know, fights regularly and that sort of thing. And my father was like a black belt in, I forget what, some martial art, and taught us a little bit of like basic moves to like defend ourselves and stuff like that. But the thing I like about it is that it's actually very much about discipline, because it's like, how do you use your body as a weapon, quote unquote, to defend yourself or defend someone else, but be disciplined enough to not get lost in the adrenaline and the anger that can be kind of attached to that moment. So I personally like really enjoyed it growing up. I never like, you know, took more like classes or anything like that, but I think it would have been really cool to do it.
And to be honest, that's a lot of what that was. I mean, every time before a session, before practice, we'd be meditating, you know, channel ourselves. They teach it not to fight out of anger because you're going to make a mistake. So it's a matter of knowing and honing in on your emotions, using those in a competitive way, but at the same time, being very disciplined, having that self-discipline to not lose control. I'll tell you, it was some of the best shape I've ever been in my life because of that kind of discipline. But at the same time, mentally, it really does drain you. It really does put you in a spot where you're like, wow, like I have to really not, like, you just hit me in the face. I have to not hit you back on instinct, just because I want to, but to just absorb it, recognize it, and then react. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy to think about how in the most savage situations, sometimes you have to be the most disciplined, and the two are at odds with each other, right? Being savage versus being disciplined. I think about that when I think about nature as well. I remember being off the coast of the North Shore of Kauai, and we went on this 17-mile kayak, and we were out in these huge waves, and it was what I would call savage ocean. It was just very, very wild and untamed. And you just had to be on, you had to be aware at all times because, a wave could come and knock you out of your kayak, which it did to us a couple times. And then you got to get yourself back in the kayak and focus. Where's the group? How do I get back to the group? And, it was this very freeing and wonderful and beautiful experience. At the same time, we had to be very, very focused and very sort of reserved in our behavior, so you didn't end up just floating out to sea and never seeing anybody again, which was really scary.
For the record, the only humane combat sport is pro wrestling. I just want that understood because they're not actually fighting.